What do you do when you have a road bike like this that doesn't have a whole lot of clearance in the brakes for a fender? We're going to try to install these PDW Poncho fenders that are the 30 millimeter width version. And the reason I want to try these is because see where the brake bridge is? They kind of cut out right around where the brake is to get you more clearance. So I'm going to start this install and let's see how it goes. Show you a couple things I'm already noticing. I'm starting with the rear fender. It's usually the more difficult one. But first of all, we have this rack in the way. Sort of in the way, but also I think this rack is actually going to be what's going to allow this fender to work well in this frame. I'm going to point out down here as well, there's no eyelet for the fender to bolt back here, and it looks like it's all carbon in there, and I'm not tempted to drill any or tap any eyelets into here, so there's a challenge. There's a seat tube, and maybe we can clamp around there. And there's also a way to potentially hook something maybe into one of these bolts here where the derailleur hanger is. Tempted to not do that because I don't want to affect the angle of the front derailleur. And then last, I see some eyelets here, maybe making a bracket that reaches around to the back to catch the fender. And then there's also no eyelets here on the frame, so what I'm going to do instead for that is actually cut down these struts to be short, so that they connect into the rack bolts there, and see how that goes. For the front fender, I'm already noticing, actually let me try to, can't quite squeeze it in there yet without taking the brake off, so I won't try to get it under the fork, but I'm always looking for a place to down here where you can bolt the fender strut in, but it doesn't have any eyelets on the fork. So fortunately, the fenders are provided with hardware including this piece, like a lollipop, or I don't know what you call that, but this is like a washer that goes underneath the quick release nut over here, and then it's got a little threaded M5 eyelet. Okay, so I've given up on trying to mount any sort of fender bracket from the seat tube, or even trying to mount something from the rear or the front derailleur bolts. And instead, I'm kind of decided to hone in on the cable guide bolt that's underneath that little plastic cable guide there. There's a hole to the left, but that's just for water to drip out. It's not threaded, and it's carbon, so you wouldn't want to thread it. I jammed a washer or a spacer in here, the kind that's used to space a water bottle cage away from the frame so that you can clear a front derailleur band clamp. And then I took a bolt, like an M5 bolt, and just hacked the head off of it, and then hacksawed a bit of a standard screwdriver slot so I could turn it, and then put a M5 bolt back on there. And it allows me to, at least, you gotta tighten this thing down somehow, but it puts, it'll allow me to get some threads on the outside so that I can mount a sort of a customized piece here that I made from a rack strut. Okay, so I found some rack hardware. It's kind of left over from a time when we took the basket and put it onto another rack, zip tied it down, and didn't need the leftover hardware. So I found some that it had these threaded rods. These are to mount from the axle of the front wheel, and threads up. What I saw was ability to use these threads and that there's a hole there to mount into the bottom bracket. But I took this one and I lopped off this end. So essentially you take this and slide it onto there, and it's all like bent in the right ways to get it to mount, to go from like slightly drive side, see how it's like not quite centered, and it can follow the line back toward the center, and then I bent it to come straight out the fender. And here we can mount two M6 nuts around it and pinch it together. I'm going to rely on the chainstays to do the lateral supporting. It doesn't really need much in the way of support from this piece. This piece is really designed to keep the fender from moving back or going forward. Oop. Yeah, let me get the hardware in there. Okay, so I'm all done. This is how it turned out. Looks really good. The front one went on pretty much without any problems. They have these adapters under here. You can see those little lollipop shaped things. So really the trick was the back one. As you can see there, it's really solid back here. It's not moving at all. It's really secure at the bottom. I put a Sheldon Fender Nut under here, and then there you go, Sheldon Fender Nuts under there, and then I used some of the CPS hardware from V-brake pads to kind of help with the difference in the angle between the stay and then the angle of the brake. So the brake angle, as you can see, kind of comes in. It's not at a 90-degree angle, so I needed these washers to help orbit around that. And then it's cinched down here, and then it's also connected to the fender. One little spot, I put a little leather there's a little leather washer under there, and secure there. And then also this is the one of the more tricky spots. I secured the struts to the actual rack mounts itself, so you can see that they're secured really well. And then PDW's got these really nice things, I don't know what they're called, they're like telescoping fender struts, and so you can get the distance just right and get the distances all the way around. So that's what it turned out like. And then I don't think there's anything else to say. Oh, actually, this is really the big deal. I'm gonna flip the bike over. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the underside. Here's that rack strut that we used to bend it, or we bent to connect the rear of the fender to the bottom bracket cable guide anchor. As you can see, there's a little bit of space here. It's a good amount, there's nothing to worry about, and yeah, it's really secure and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's about it, and hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sure I can make better videos, but for now I'm just kind of getting crude with making it work. So that's how it goes together.